That is here. Lamin Jawara from Ministry of Health. Oh, fantastic. We are complete. So over to you, Menge. Okay. So we have 40 minutes for this session. Over to you.
Oh, okay. So those are the and then social registration. Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm good. How are you? I'm quite excited to have you. Which one was the last one? Okay. Did Father just go with my stuff? Where's Fatim? Good afternoon, everyone. I hope those that are still upstairs having their lunch, can we please have everybody downstairs, please? And because we want to start the panel. All right, thank you very much. I think we're going to start the second panel. Give me a second. Oh. So this panel is going to be on data and digital transformation in the public sector, which I think is quite exciting. We've been doing a lot of work, both ITAG and the ecosystem. These are private companies, NGOs, donor-funded projects, and health ministries. And I think we thought when we were thinking about what are some of the prevalent issues that we should be discussing at the ICT EXPO. And data was one of them, and digital transformation. I think since in the morning we have been seeing exhibitions. We've had the first panel, which was talking about digital finance. And so all of these things will write on digital transformation, especially in the public sector. And we felt it was really, really important. Hence why we did it after lunch, so that you guys could pay attention, be able to engage with the panelists. And please feel free to ask questions when we're done with the session, because I think they're open to taking questions. I'll start with introducing my panelists. I have Mr. Momodou Salifou Jatta from Accountants General. And then I have, next to Momodou Salifou, we have Mr. Amadou Nyang, which I think he is a familiar face, with the new Ministry of Communication and Digital Economy. We're going to try to not use the abbreviation for now. And then next to him, we have Mamadou Aliou Diallo from WADIP, which is the new project under the ministry. And after Mamadou Aliou, we have Ms. Jojo Ndour Tamberu, CEO of Intis Global. I think if you're in the ICT sector, she's also a very, very familiar face. And then we have Mr. Lamin Jatta from the Ministry of Health. So as you can see, we wanted, even though we're going to discuss data in the public service and digital transformation, we also wanted to have private partners who are currently doing the work. But I think we're going to start with the, Mr. Amonyang here, because he's coming from the ministry. First, we'll just let you introduce yourself and what you do, and then we'll start with the discussions. Can we get an additional mic, please?
Thank you very much. Benge, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, co-panelists here. By the way, I'm still trying to struggle how to pronounce M-O-C-D-E. Some people say Mode or Mogde, so let's try not to pronounce it. Like Menge indicated, my name is Amadou Nyang. I am the Director of ICT at the Ministry of Communications and Digital Economy. I joined the ministry in 2009 as a cadet ICT officer and rose through the ranks. So I have been there for the past, I think, 12 years or so now, or 13 years. That's the bad thing about being a technician. You don't get to move somewhere else. I get to stay at the ministry.
Thank you. We'll pass over the mic to Mr. Momodu Salifu Jatta.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, ladies and gentlemen, honorable guests. My name is Momodu Salifu Jatta. I'm Deputy Accountant General responsible for ICT at the Ministry of Finance.
Thank you. We'll have the other Momodu.
Good afternoon, Madam Moderator Mbenge, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my co-panelists. I am Mahmoud Aliou Jallow, as Mbenge said, the project coordinator for the WADI project, World Bank funded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we pass over to Ms. Georgia?
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Georgia Ndu Tambedu. I am the CEO of INSIS Global. We work closely with the government developing different platforms for them that solve challenges that we have as a people. I'm also the chair for the Sector Skills Council for ICT and also the member from the Sector Skills Council on the TVET committee.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. My name is Lamin Jara. I am the Senior ICT Officer at the Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, the Gambia. I joined the ministry in 2009 to date. Thank you.
All right. I think since you're having the mic, we'll start with you, Mr. Jatta. The Alcamba Times says Gambia is the first to launch the digital immunization platform. And so I think whenever we talk about Gambia and tech, we always believe that we're last and we're still catching up. So when I saw that headline, it stood out to me. And we've seen that you guys have made enormous strides, especially during the COVID. It looks like we almost was triggered to start taking action in terms of your digitization journey during the COVID. Can you tell us what inspired you guys as a ministry to start moving and embracing digital transformation?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Basically, at the ministry, in 2009, when I joined the ministry, I realized that we are using Excel to collect data. And for that being the case, we are not able to compile all the data, reporting, and other issues. Then we then started to make some research. We realized that there is a software that is globally used, not at global level there, which is the DHIS2, District Health Information Systems. And Gambia, we are the second country in Africa to use the system. And today it's like in 60 countries in Africa, all over the world. So we started using that system. At the beginning, it was a very big challenge for us to use the system, being the fact that the people we work with, most of them, they don't know about IT. If you tell them the digital system, no, they still want to use paper or they still want to go with their Excel. Some you even tell them the system, they don't even know. So that has been a very big challenge. But my unit, we've been there to make sure that we push, we have conduct series of meetings, and we happen to have ministers. Some of them, they don't understand about technology. And I keep saying this, one of the ministers we have, which is Fatim, when she joined the ministry as our minister, I said, wow. Then she was there like to support us in terms of digital technology. So we were using the systems from 2009 to date, but when the COVID came, that was the time myself and my colleagues, we were in Ghana, and that was the beginning of the corona to work on a tracker system across African countries. And when we came, we found out that there is corona in Gambia. But we already found out WHO and partners, they developed a paper-based things that has been working. So it has been working for them at the beginning. But the time the cases have started coming more and more, and it was so difficult, and we told them, look, why not do we use technology to collect data on tablets? And they said, no, this will not work. And they were struggling, and people will have COVID, they want to know their results. It will take about 2-3 days before they know that they are positive or negative, and they still be in the society, moving around. And we then decided, I would say, I always keep saying this, myself, I was tested with corona, then I wanted to know my result. Then they sent me the PDF, which is about almost 150 to 1,000 people. So to go over all those PDF documents to check for my result, whether I'm positive or negative, and it took me the whole night. And the next day, I said to my team, my IT team, then why not we go digital today? And some of the lab guys, they were scared, and the RLT, they said, no, this will not work. I told them that, look, we have to go digital. But with the support of because by then, we have no tablet, we have no nothing. And WFP, they gave us about 40 tablets, and we developed an apps, digital apps using the DHIS2. We install in all the tablets, and we told the ministry today we're going digital. So they told that it will not work, then we started using it. By then, the lab people, those at the sample reception, it will took them like the whole day to make sure that they receive all the sample. But the day we went digital, we went inside in the lab to make sure that we saw them how it works. Believe me, it took them about 3 hours to at least register all the sample to make sure that everything worked. So that was the day we went digital to try to make sure, that anybody who has a COVID or we want to do for contact tracing, the rapid response, we make sure that we digitalize everybody and we give them a unique COVID number so that we can track your COVID cases along the way in the system. So that prompted us to go in digital. And then since then, it has been working so efficiently for the country. And even with this QR code of the vaccine certificate, and also for these things, we try to have everything together in the system to make life easier for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lamin. I think if you've traveled in the past year or couple of months, you see that when you go to do your testing, you get a QR code and you can sit at the comfort of your home to get your results. So we applaud the effort that the ministry has been doing in this stride. I got COVID when my baby was 7 months. And so it was very, very difficult to be going and mingling with people, and most of the things that I needed I had to do online, including even getting my medication. So I think when we talk about digital transformation, most times we ask what was the trigger? And was it innovation? Was it the staff? Was it trend, or was it COVID-19? And the reality is, for most offices, it became COVID-19. We'll come back to you reviewing 50 people's 50 people's results, because we have a component of the panel on data privacy, which I think is very, very important. And Gambia we need to begin to take it seriously. And so I'll skip over to Dr. Tamberu here at INSYS Global. I think for people like you to have the systems running, you need people like her. You need institutions like INSYS Global, and they've been in the field doing software development for a very long time. Georgia, what is your real and honest assessment of Gambian public sector and local content? Local content. Basically, because you are offering services to make sure that they, get on board with digital transformation. And most of the companies, when you talk with them, they were like, when opportunities come, most government agencies would prefer to go and outsource it, even though they know we have the technology, we have the talent. And as a service provider, what has been your experience with the public sector in helping them go digital?
Okay. Firstly, I wanted to say that I'm really passionate about digital transformation, and I'm working with UNESCO, coming up with an agenda on digital transformation of the skills development sector in the Gambia. So it's a sector that I'm really interested in, a topic that I'm really interested in. So we work closely with the government. Currently, we have 4 projects running, and we developed the education management system for MOHAS, which we recently launched. And we were the only contractors working on it, which was amazing, and it's the first time that has ever been done. On the other projects that we're working on, so we're working with the Ministry of Health on the Logistic Management Information System. We have the Social Registry Information System for the Office of the Vice President. We have, but we also have the Labor Market Information System, which we also did as a small project. But most of the projects that we do, we are part of a consortium of other companies, international companies, except for the MOHAS project. And I think we need to move away from getting international consultants to do work that we can do ourselves. Like I have my guys here, they're amazing. I always say that, but they're amazing. They're the reason I'm still in Gambia. So they can do whatever they can do, if not better. because we understand the system, we understand the processes, we understand our people, and we understand our problems. So I think the government needs to move away from calling for international bidders. Why? I mean, if there's an assessment that needs to be made, make an assessment. Sometimes as well, some of the TORs would put in conditions that limits institutions within the Gambia from being able to apply for that. Some of this can be, you need to have an annual turnover of how many million US dollars. How is that possible? You know, they need to embrace they need to embrace our own people. They need to believe in our people, know that we have the knowledge, but also be willing to invest time and energy. I mean, let them pay us the money stays in the country. But you'd rather pay someone else outside millions of dollars to develop a system that someone from the university can develop in the Gambia. Give us that money. Let us invest it in the people. Let us pay our people to stay in the country so they're not thinking about leaving the country to go somewhere else and do some work. So let's say they may have 20 years experience or 30 years experience, but INSIS Global has been in existence for over 10 years. If there are any challenges that needs to be dealt with, we can deal with it on the ground. So give us the chance, but also when you give us the chance, pay us as much as you will be willing to pay someone else from outside. I also wanted to mention about when we talk about digital transformation, a lot of the times we're just looking at digitalization rather than digital transformation. And digital transformation is more of the processes, the culture, changing a transition or a shift in the way we do things or the way, you know, it can even change your unique value propositions, for instance. So it's deeper than just putting a system and saying that we've digitally transformed. And I can give you an example. So we have like the Afrijula platform, which has a loan application platform. And you apply for a loan online, but still the banks will ask you to go in and process the loan. So we have to do a lot of work, changing policies, working with central bank, working with banks to possibly introduce digital products that won't require someone going back and doing the same processes. So we need to move towards, rather than just digitalization, but digital transformation. And I think there is a need. People need to find the value in moving towards technology. I can give you an example. Yesterday, I went to the hospital. I came out, there was a car parked behind me. I didn't know what the driver is. Scanned the QR code. I took the number. I called him. I'm like, can I move someone to me? And he was like, how did you get my number? I'm like, that's not the problem. Just come move your car, and I need to go. I went to the bank today. I'm traveling, I have to do a COVID test. I came, there was a long queue of people. One teller, the rest of the tellers were having breakfast. I'm like, I'm not doing this. Can I pay online? I paid online, and then I was gone, and I could do other things. And there can be many, many, many examples. So it's the only option, because it makes our lives easier. It makes our life more convenient. And you can spend time doing other things rather than waiting in queue at the bank and wasting time. So it's the only option.
Thank you so very much. I think when we talk about, a big round of applause. I mean, more companies should start looking into hiring female CEOs. I mean, we just come and we change the game. But I think when we talk about digital transformation, one of the key things that you mentioned is innovation and the cultural shift that needs to come with it. I remember I used to have a boss who used to say, selling technology is like selling an idea. And it's so true. Even in the offices, with the folio numbers, with the files, like I wanted to go into public sector to just be a more, wholesome person, more holistic in understanding, because I used to be in the private sector and just be blaming the government. And I'm like, let me take a step and see how this is done and see how I can bring the experiences from the private sector into the public sector. But like you said, the key thing there is a cultural shift, which I think we can invest all the project money that we want. But if the government is not committing in changing this, it may be very, very difficult to get there. Which brings me to my next panelist, Momodou Alio, the guy with the money. So we're happy to have you. He is the project coordinator for WADIP, which is the West Africa Regional Digitization and Integration Project. When Georgia was talking about digital transformation, we know we cannot get there without internet. We know we cannot get there without broadband. We know we cannot get there without basic accessibility. This is internet, broadband, electricity. So with the coming of WADIP, how do you intend to use the resources that this project has garnered into making sure that that becomes a reality?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Before coming to your question, I want to reiterate what Doctor just said. When we talk of digital transformation, it is different from digitalization. And the WADI project is in line with that, honors that. And that's why when we talk of digital transformation, we need to think a whole of government approach, since you're talking public sector. If you go in countrywide or more than public, we need to talk of a whole of society approach. So digital transformation is not only we digitize, and even if we digitize, is also we have to be careful, because most of the time digitalization furthers the digital divide. It may also further the inequalities in our society, and thereby jeopardizing achieving the SDG goal of inclusive growth. So that's why in the WADI project, all that we're doing, we are very careful and making sure that the vulnerable societies are not disadvantaged. What we do, so that's why among the 10 specialists to be hired, we'll have 2 that are dedicated to making sure that safeguards are protected, right? Meaning environmental, right, social safeguards are protected. So in the activities we do, for example, there is one on digital literacy. So we make sure that those people living with disabilities or people differently able, they are also on board. We have a percentage that, look, if you train this much people in digital literacy or digital skills, whatever you call it, this much should be for those living with disabilities. Likewise, if you come to digital startups, we have a commitment, or we plan to have a commitment, it's not final yet, the project is still in preparation, that if you support, for example, 100 digital startups, we want to say this much percentage should be startups led by people living with disabilities, right? Similarly, if you come to digital financial transactions, with the activities we do, we hope to increase the digital transactions by a percentage. And in that, to achieve that, we will roll out campaigns, advocacies, and digital financial literacy. And in that, we will focus on the disadvantaged groups, the women and those in the rural. Because most of the time, if you talk of digital financial services, it's restricted here. But how about those in rural areas? How about the women? So we have a percentage that this much of that for digital financial literacy should be dedicated to this group of people who are disadvantaged, right? So this way, in the form of digital transformation, we do not further the digital divide, we do not further the inequalities in our society, and we work towards achieving that inclusive growth for all of us. So, because I think this is very important in our societies. Coming back to your question, how WADI project will enhance access? The WADI project, the main component is deploying a second submarine cable. And work has already begun. Maybe the director of ICTs will come on that, but the World Bank, the project has a fund dedicated to support that deployment. And not only deploying that, but remember, if you deploy, you also need the regulatory aspect, the policy aspect. So there are a whole lot of studies to develop regulations that will make sure the prices of access comes down. There is, we will review, if you remember, there was a time 2019, the ECO1 and ACE tariff was reviewed and it was brought down. And that led to the cost of access being brought down to almost by 50%. So when the WADI project is effective, we also roll out a similar activity, and hopefully we will get the cost of access come down. Similarly, there's an activity to draw infrastructure sharing and policy framework, whereby the cost of deploying access, the cost of operation by the service providers will be lessened, meaning the cost of entry will be lessened. Instead of everyone who comes will need his own infrastructure, but a new entrant will be privileged to ride on the existing infrastructure owned by existing operators. That is mandatory for them to allow that active and passive sharing of infrastructure. So in a nutshell, the wider project, the main component will be on access, because we know you cannot talk of digital transformation without ensuring access, affordable, right, and whatever access. So the biggest component is that, then we have other components. Hope that answers your question.
It does, but I'll still stick with you before we pass over the mic to Amadou Nyang. When you talk about the second submarine cable, I think everybody in this hall is quite excited, because in one way or the other we're affected by internet in our day-to-day lives. Using it to work, using it to communicate with your school, using it to, shop. So in so many ways. I remember when we were having the discussions about the first fiber optic cable, everybody was excited as well. And then we came, and then we had so many panels where people sat and said, yeah, we have the fiber optic cable, but the reason why we have internet blackouts is because maybe we don't have the last mile, or we don't have redundancy. So how do we make sure that when we bring the second submarine cable, we don't have the same recurring challenges?
I don't get it, sorry.
So currently we have a 5/8 cable, right? And when it was coming, the promise was internet is going to be accessible to all, and it was going to be affordable. And we realized years down the line that didn't become a reality. And mostly it was because of the last mile, then they said, and redundancy. And so how do we make sure that with the coming of this project and the second submarine cable, that doesn't become something that is repeating?
Okay, I got it now. So with the fund, World Bank will not want to fund last mile access. They will not fund that. Because if you do your homework right, last mile access should be very easy, should be given. It should be given. So once you have the first mile, that is the submarine cable deployed, accessible, right? Then we have your policy and regulatory framework intact, giving a real competitive environment, right? This will steer new entrants that can deploy last mile access. So last mile access, if there's a challenge, it can be attributed to our regulatory framework and our policy framework, but not the connectivity. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, which throws me to Mr. Amadou Nyang. I think this is just the best way. So if you can pass over the mic. So Amadou Nyang, just piggybacking on what Mr. Momodo has talked about in terms of policy. We realize that as a country, there's so much policy bottlenecks that have hindered digital transformation. And this could be, just last week we were having a discussion about the data privacy bill and how this has affected and kind of stifled digital transformation. So what are we doing as a ministry? And yeah, first of all, congratulations on the decoupling. This is a very, very happy divorce that everybody is happy to witness. But yeah, how are you using this new ministry and giving priority to digital transformation so that the bottlenecks are removed?
Thank you, Menge. It's a pleasure to be here, really. I think to start with, regarding especially on the theme of discussion, data and digital transformation, I think for some of the people that follow the news, just 2 weeks ago or so, to be specific, I think the statistics from the GBOS equivalent of Nigeria, that is the Standards Bureau of Nigeria, released their report, and it indicated that ICT now is contributing 22-point-something% towards their GDP compared to oil. You know, before we used to say data is the new oil, but the reality now is data has actually transcended to more than the new oil. So the importance of data really cannot be overemphasized. Before I delve into the policy dimension, I want to take you from my colleague Jallo and also CEO here. Maybe I can start with the comment of CEO, especially on the different aspects of of tenders and so forth. I think what she said is very, very right. I want to agree with her, no doubt. But I think, I know different institutions in government, the Ministry of Trade, especially our ministry, we are looking at, because especially legislation on local content. Because some of those things are very, very relevant. If you don't have some of those things really, and we go through some of these tender processes, there is no way you can change these terms of reference to say, or to award it to Gambians, especially if some of these tenders are funded by international partners. The monies are a lot. It has to be international competitive bidding. These firms, obviously, they have more experience and expertise than our local firms, unfortunately or fortunately for them. But if we have some of these laws, I think it will be able to address some of those things, like legislations on local content. I know institutions are working on that, possibly legislation on startup also, how to support the startup companies. Those are very, very relevant. But I think from our experience, the other thing that we need to indicate is, I think, generally, I don't want to say this, but generally, from our experience, Gambians love to work independently. We are not very good at coming together as consortiums. Really, we have seen examples where, there are some important tenders that, you have a particular expertise in one domain. I think you can leverage on an expertise from a different person, and you come together as a consortium and you do that. Sometimes it happens. I can give you an example. There is close to $1 million transaction advisory funded by the World Bank that is currently happening. You have 5 US entities that came together and formed one consortium for that tender. That is, you're talking about $1 million consultancy. 5 US companies came together. There is no way 5 companies can actually stand against one entity really. So going back to the question on redundancy and the last mile, I think what we are addressing under WADIP, that is the second submarine cable, is exactly to avoid the downtimes that we have been facing as a country. I know my brother Pons is looking at me, especially when we talk about internet downtimes, and I know his questions will be flying later, but this is different from the internet downtimes of the previous administration. We know the realities are obviously different now. Before, what we have is deliberate internet shutdowns. But now what is happening is some technical challenges here and there. ACE is down, and then our backup, as a country we have a backup that